Welcome to Teaching Truth, the boat of the church. That's the theme for our reflections this week as we look at the connection between the security and safety of the boat that we read of in Matthew chapter 14, where the 11 disciples remained, and the church. Where are we as disciples of Jesus Christ today? Are we sitting in that boat of comfort and security? Or are we in fact willing to step out of the boat? And in our reflections today, having thought about the culture of comfort yesterday, we want to think about the circumstances of the storm today. The circumstances of the storm which we read of in Matthew chapter 14. Let's just read a few verses from this familiar story once again. Immediately Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side while he dismissed the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. Buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. Might that be the reality of all that we as churches have experienced over the last 2 years during this COVID pandemic? Buffeted by the waves because the wind, in one sense, has been against us. Now let me say what I just sense and believe in my heart here. That I believe that God is shaking the nations in these days through this global pandemic. He is rocking the boat. The tectonic plates are moving. The waves are getting higher. There is a toxic rising of nationalism and attitudes within our nation that we have not seen at all in our history. Deception, lies, blame, evil are now clear for all to see. The pandemic crisis has brought out the very worst in some, but also the very best in others. And where is the church? Where is the boat of the church in the sea, in the ocean, as it were, of the pandemic? Well, I believe the church has been rattled. The church has been shaken. But has the church been stirred? God is rocking the boat. God is saying to his disciples, you and I, perhaps asleep metaphorically in the boat, wake up, church. Get out of the boat. Do not see the pandemic as a threat. See it as an opportunity to step out, to go for it. You know, I really cringe when I hear some Christian leaders in other churches say we want to get back to normal. In saying that, they have missed an opportunity. They've missed the opportunity to get out of the boat, to orient themselves in a fresh direction. And we need to get real. Because Jesus said, even in the midst of the storm, to Peter, come to me on the water. You see, the storm was there when Peter got out the boat. The storm didn't die down for Peter to then get out the boat. The storm was there when Peter was called by Jesus to walk on the water. The circumstances of the storm, the circumstances of the pandemic ought not to inhibit us from stepping out and going for it and seizing the opportunities that Jesus is presenting to us, as it were, on the ocean before us. You see, Jesus said, get out of the boat. Jesus said, do not stay in the church. Jesus said, go and make disciples. And it took Acts 8 and the persecution of the church to get the church, as it were, out of buildings and into the community. And all that has been lockdown and restrictions over the last 2 years has turfed us out of our buildings. Not that our buildings are not useful, they are, but they're only bricks and mortar at the end of the day. Lockdown and restrictions have turfed us out of our buildings and into our communities and into our neighbourhoods. We've been tipped, as it were, out the boat and into the ocean that we need to be swimming in. And we need to join God, as it were, out on the water, because that's where, as Peter discovered, that's where the adventure is. Stop, look, and listen. Stop, look, and listen has been the opportunity that the last 2 years, I believe, has afforded to the Church of Jesus Christ. And God is raising up people, girls, boys, men and women, who are willing to get out of the boat despite the circumstances of the storm. And healthy churches will be those churches who will step out of the boat. The circumstances of the storm. I don't know what the pandemic has been for you or meant to you, either personally or for whatever church or community you are a part of. But in the midst of the storm, in the midst of the pandemic, Jesus, I believe, is rocking the boat. And in the circumstances of the storm, is saying, step out the boat. Don't become comfortable and cozy in the boat. Despite the circumstances, despite all that is happening, seize the opportunity, like Peter did, to step out of the boat. Our reaction to the circumstances will determine the relationship and the faith that we have in the one who is on the ocean and inviting us to step out of the boat and to walk on water with him.